Something very special in here. You want to see it? 1, 2, 3. So this machine came from an island on the west coast of Scotland. Belongs to a professional machinist, and she's had this for quite a while. Just sitting in a garage. So she asked me if I would do a refurbishment job on it. Of course, I hadn't seen it at the time when she asked. So we went into the shed, which turned out to be a big barn, and then she pulled out this machine for me to see. Well, how could I resist? It's a transverse shuttle, very early Pfaff, type R. So it's kind of similar to a Singer 28 in the construction of the head and the mechanism up here, but the transverse shuttle is the same as the Singer 12. So it's an interesting kind of hybrid of the Singer models, and it's a little finer. The detail is a little finer. This post is a little finer, a little bit narrower, and it's just a beautiful machine. These are some of the attachments that came with it, and I do love when you find an old machine and you open the drawer and it's just full of little treasures. Now this is the drawer that came with it. Now there's the pitman rod. That's where it came from. And look, it says Pfaff, and the A is the keyhole. That's beautiful. What do you think we might have in here? Woohoo! Look at that lovely treadle wheel. So Singer might have been the best at marketing, but they weren't actually the best machine. They were very good, but some of these other companies just made things just a little bit better. There's the Pfaff. Look at that. I don't think I'm going to be able to achieve that level of paint quality, but that is just beautiful. And there's the center section. Just lovely. I have to say, I'm very excited to finally get this machine out and get started on it. And it's got this beautiful measurement down the front, which appears to be in inches, which is a surprise for a German machine. One of the first things to do in any rebuild or restoration for me is to make sure that the machine actually works beforehand. So I gave it a good soaking with WD last night, and it's sat overnight. And now I'm just going to have a look and see how things are. So it turns. It's a bit stiff, but it does turn. Needle bars going up and down. We've got everything there, the needle clamp, the thread guide. Got a presser foot, and the presser foot bar is fine. And looking at the bobbin winder, squeaky, but it does turn. And the thread guide's fine. Yeah, so all that seems to be working, or seems to be there. So looking around the back of the machine, we'll take this cover off. Oh, what a beautiful mechanism inside. That is lovely. Can you see that? That is just quite wonderful. So this was 1904, this machine. This is a Pfaff from 1904, and it already has rotary gears. Now, if you look at a Singer from a similar age, you'll not see that. It has cranks and cams. This is definitely stiff though. Something is definitely jamming it, but there's no corrosion in there. That's all really nice and clean. It's just maybe a bit gummed up somewhere. Take off the front panel and let's have a look in the head. So there, looking into the head, so we can see we've got nice movement on the presser foot. That's working well, and the adjustment is free. And looking at the needle bar, so needle bar's going up nice and easily, and the take-up arm is moving nice and freely. So this, again, 1904, and look at that, this has got a tension release, although it's not working. Oh, sorry, no, it's a manual tension release. Operated from there. That's quite a bit more sophisticated than the Singer 28. Now, looking at the underside, that's the best way to do that. Now, the underside of this machine is quite lovely. This is lovely polished metal and beautifully finished. Let's see if we can get this to work. There you go. So we've got very nice motion on that. All the parts are there. It actually has a little, if you can see there, has a little Pfaff logo on there. Lovely. So, and to open it, so that opens nicely. Oh, and there you go. There's the bobbin. So this is an interesting hybrid. It's a flat-sided, so it's kind of like a boat-shaped bobbin, but it loads from the end, which makes it more like a bullet-shaped bobbin. Sorry, bobbin case. Shuttle. Shuttle is the word, that's what it is, it's a shuttle. And there we can see the bobbin. That's a little bit different to other ones as well. So it only goes in one way, and then it has these 3 holes in this end. So that's quite interesting. Okay, well, everything appears to be there, and it all appears to be working. So quite happy to go ahead with a strip and rebuild. tension assembly is really tight. I'm not being able to move it, so I'm trying some heat and some oil, some penetrating oil. I'll also strip it down first as well. Trouble with heat is as soon as you put it on, you then burn your fingers. I can't find any clamps or any screws that are holding the tension unit in, so my assumption is that it's a screw thread. So to bring it out, I need to unscrew it. So I'm going to put this nut back on, and that will support the end of the tension unit while I try to prise it out. So heat causes everything to expand and loosen up. Then a little burst of WD-40 or some other penetrating oil, and the oil cools it and is drawn into all of the seams by the contracting metal. There we go. So that's loosening off now. Well, there you go. It's a left-hand thread. So that would have been a difficult one to find. Check that out. And you can see in the end, so that's the pin for the tension release. And the spring. And the spring is intact, still has its shape on the end, so we've managed to save that. But it looks like a Singer 28 spring would also fit. And then the tension release is accessed from the other side. So we need to come in from this side, there's a hole there. So we can get at that screw. There you go, and there's the tension release mechanism for this machine. Nice. And the last thing in the head is the take-up arm. And that's it out. Through it and a bit of movement, and it's now completely freed off. And what a beautiful movement that is. So purely for fun, here is a 28, and you can see how the mechanism on the 28 works. It's a simple crank system, so not using a rotary motion, just using that crank action to move the shuttle. And here on the Pfaff, we've got that lovely rotary motion. So one of the issues with these older machines was vibration. As the machine speeded up, the oscillating movement of the metalwork caused them to vibrate. So because the Singer has an oscillating crankshaft as well as an oscillating shuttle system there, then all of these pieces of metal move in one way then the other way, and as that speeds up, that's what causes the vibration. Whereas on the Pfaff, because the only piece that is moving really in a linear fashion is this small arm here. Now this is a very light arm, and then the shuttle moving along that guide. The rest of it is rotary, so that is going to decrease the amount of vibration that this machine will have. So it will be interesting to see once I get it back together and we look at the speed and how they compare. Looking at other parts of the machine, they are very similar. So the stop motion and the hand wheel pretty much the same. Stitch length on the 28 is done through this screw, whereas on the Pfaff it's done using the slider down here. The bobbin winder on the Singer is a bit more simple, to be honest, and probably a little bit better, hard to say. Whereas the bobbin winder on the Pfaff, beautiful though it is much more complex. There's a lot more going on here, and it uses this flat plate as a thread guide. Tension, so you can see the tension assembly on the 28, controlled by pushing on this button here, whereas on the Pfaff, you saw the one I used earlier, it had the little button mounted underneath, which when you push it uses the pin to lift the discs. But other than that, they are very similar machines in design. You can see the Pfaff has finer lines and is a lighter body. Whereas the Singer has a much more chunky post and a lot more beef up here. But then inside there is where we have the crank system. Which we can see there. So this is the crank system, which is working that mist stuff down below, and a lot cheaper, and that is part of the point. So this would be much cheaper to produce than this geared system. So having these pinions machined is quite an expensive process, whereas that is a basic casting, so probably cheaper to produce in the long run. So that's the two machines that were contemporaries of each other back in 1904, and we can see the similarities and the differences between the two. My choice for tool for removing the paint in the past, I've used these sanding discs, which are very effective, but they can, if you stay in one place too long, they can leave a mark. So I've got a couple of different options this time. So I purchased some of these. So these are like a nylon grinding brush, but they are not actually hard enough to take off the Japanning. So they will score the surface and they'll provide a good key if you're just going to do a repaint over the top of the existing Japanning. They will take off the shellac as well, but you can use alcohol for that anyway. But what I'm going for this time is just a basic wire brush. And I've also got a battery grinder, which is a little bit more gentle. It spins a bit slower and you can slow it down, so it gives me a little bit more control. So we're just going to work our way around and remove the rest of the paint. There are areas that it's not possible to get in with the wire brush on the grinder. So a small it's like a brass wire toothbrush. It's quite good for getting into those areas. Just a small screwdriver works quite well as a scraper for taking those last little bits of paint off that you can't get. There's always a little bit here that always gets stuck. There we go. I think that's pretty good. So there is the main body, stripped, ready for degreasing, and then masking up, ready for painting.
thank you for watching part 1 of this restoration. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've got something from it. Put some comments and any questions that you might have. Come back for part 2 when you see the reassembly and testing and sewing of this beautiful machine. And here is a little taster so you can see a little bit about what she's going to look like.